To accompany my CodeProject article on PHP and Lambda. To go ahead and deploy this, we're going to use AWS Cloud 9. I'll start this environment up and let this go. You can feel free, this works perfectly fine on the micro instance. I just wanted to start up and run a bit quicker, so I'm going to use a larger instance. Cloud9's a web-based IDE. It's really handy for situations like this where I don't want to necessarily install PHP locally and I want to have consistent instructions that anybody can go ahead and follow along with. So here's the main repository that we're going to be working with today. And I've outlined the steps that we should need to do to go ahead and get this up and running. We'll be able to deploy our PHP function within Lambda. I'll copy the first couple of steps here, which is the environment's just about started. So the first couple of steps install PHP and an additional dependency that's required later for composers to install one of the PHP dependencies. So once your Cloud9 environment has started up, paste in those commands into the terminal, and this will run fairly quickly. So while it's going ahead and doing its thing, the very next step we're going to do is clone this repository, cd into that, and then run this command here. This is just a standard install composer, so it uses PHP to go ahead and use PHP from the command line to go ahead and install itself. So I'll copy those commands ready. Okay, good. So we've installed those dependencies. We're going to clone down that repo so we can see that that exists here now. We will see the composer itself there. I think you saw it really quickly. There was some temp files that were being put in that folder, but the end result is this composer.phr file. That's what we want to see, and we want to see that under this AWS Lambda PHP MVC application. If we were to expand code, we'll see that this is our actual code that we're going to deploy into our Lambda function. So the very next step is we cd into that code folder and run the composer commands to require bref and also that's wrong, that HTTP comment is wrong. It should be this. So we're going to require guzzle HTTP and bref equals corrupt earlier. Bref is just some dependencies that are required to run PHP within Lambda. That link is also included as part of this repository and walkthrough. So at the moment, our application is actually ready to run. Now, before I run it, I'll just do a tiny little quick step through. And if you had your own PHP application, you would go ahead and put that into code. This accompanies that article where I've had some bit of fun experimenting with building an MVC application. Basically, the way this works is it looks at the URI that it's come in, and if there's nothing on the URI, then it loads a base view, a base controller, and a base method. And so I've set those up in here. But if you were to load a URL such as, like, I'll just type it in here, https://domain/random/joke, random/joke. So this is what would be expected in this part of this demo. We fall into this else category. What we do is it does do some stripping of the slashes out of the URL, and it figures out what the view will be. So the view will be random/joke and then prepended with view. So we go view random joke. So that's the file we expect to see there. To figure out the controller, it does a similar thing, except it goes controller and it just goes to random. So it doesn't go all the way through. So we can see here that we pop one piece off the end, so it just goes to random. To grab the last location in that array is when I look for that command joke, and that then is being set as the controller method that we're going to execute. So if we were to look at random, we would see there's one method called joke. We want to go and execute that. That does a HTTP call, pulls in a random joke, and then injects the result of that into RC. I used RC as a variable to pass information between the controller and the views, just a request context. So we would expect then our view to touch nothing other than information or data that comes from RC. So it shouldn't look in post, it shouldn't looking for like globally scoped variables, everything we need should be available within this RC context. And if we were to look in the joke, we can see that very basic and simple HTML here outputs from the HTTP result into setup. The setup of the joke comes from HTTP result setup, and we'll see that once we've gone ahead and deployed that. So while it's deploying, I'll demonstrate how this works. So this will be CodeProject. One more thing that we have to do. Yep. So we just got to make sure that we have the layer set right. I'll step through this in just a second. So give your stack a name, pick the region you're going to head and deploy into. I don't need to confirm, but we do want to grant authorization to create the roles. I'll save the output. If I have to deploy it again, want to. So that will go ahead and deploy this application, which will be, if we look in this template, template.yaml, this is a SAM template. What we're actually deploying to AWS is really just two things. A Lambda function. The Lambda function is specified here. The runtime is a provider runtime, so we're going to use a basic empty shell for Lambda, and we're going to use this layer. So this layer is provided by Bref. They are available in all regions. This is the Bref AWS account, and you need to just change this section of this line to align with the region that you're going to go ahead and deploy this into. This places the files onto that Lambda function that are needed to run PHP, so all the binary objects that are required to run PHP in this environment. And secondly, there's an API gateway that's being placed in, and this will capture anything that comes off the URL. So give us a HTTP endpoint or HTTPS endpoint, and anything that comes in on a HTTP endpoint, we want to route into this Lambda function. The handler for anything that's incoming will be routed to a single handler that is index.php. And so that means that you can't just navigate to any of these files directly. It will always go through this index.php file, which is why I was fiddling around with building that MVC framework. Just route everything through index.php and use URL convention to pull in the views that are needed. The code URI is just specifying that all of the code for our application comes from this code folder. You can change that to whatever you want as long as it matches up to you. You might ask, why did I build my own? Well, just because there was no reason to do that. It was just fun. I was helping out somebody and I thought it might be interesting to go ahead and get a little, just jump back into PHP. I haven't really touched it for 6 or 7 years. And it was just interesting and fun to do. So let's have a look at this work. So this opens up that sample application. It looks like it's all working pretty great. Here you can see that Crumo debugging library. This is just really handy when if you're not used to PHP, and I wasn't, how to access nested arrays and so forth, and how data looks. I just wanted to dump everything out onto the page and have a look at it. So to go back and revisit that joke page, we've got the random joke. So here's what I was talking about earlier, the setup. Why do chicken coops only have 2 doors? Because if they had 4 doors, that would be a chicken sedans. Okay, there you go. Very funny car joke. But here's the result that has come back. So we can see in request context there is this value called HTTP result, and that has a number of different attributes in it as well. So general, the type, general, setup, and punchline. So that's why I was talking earlier about the setup and the punchline. And there we have it. Within a few minutes, I mean less than a few minutes really, with talking about it, we've got a PHP application deployed into Lambda. And just to sort of show how quick this might be, to resubmit something up there, project. So if we just revisit the home page, see, so that doesn't exist there. If I was to do SAM deploy again, that would package up this application and redeploy it, but there is no change to the infrastructure, so it should be fairly quick to go and deploy that. So we'll just wait and we'll see that go, and you'll be able to sort of see the turnaround time if you're going ahead to do some deployments. Obviously, you probably want to automate this through some sort of pipeline, and you might have a bit of a local development environment set up to not have to go through these steps. I didn't really bother setting any of that up. I just deployed it as I went along and just used trial and error to see if it worked. You can see the change has been deployed already. Only took 15 seconds of those to deploy. I hope the video was interesting, and I hope some people have some fun critiquing my PHP. Take care, bye.